Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video we'll be talking about the history behind Jorogumo in For Honor. I hope you're not afraid of spiders, but before we start today's video, a short disclaimer. I am not a historian, I am just simply passionate about samurai history, so I do get things wrong from time to time, so please tell me if I got anything wrong in the comments down below. With that out of the way, let's move into the main part of the video. In Japan, some spiders are known to possess amazing supernatural powers. One of these is Jorogumo, known as the Golden Weaver in English. The Jorogumo is most well known for being the arachnid yokai, and found all over Japan's archipelago except the northern island of Hokkaido. The differences between the Golden Weaver spider and Jorogumo is that the spider is harmless to humans. However, Jorogumo is extremely deadly. The Juro spider is native to South Asia. The Golden Weaver is much more widespread, found in Australia, Asia, Africa, North America and South America. Their body sizes average between 2 to 3 centimeters long, but they can grow much longer. Some are massive enough to catch and eat small birds, renowned for their size and vibrant beautiful colors, and their large and strong webs that they weave. The Jorogumo is also famous for their cruel destruction they wreak on young men. Written with modern kanji, their name means elegant bride, but the original meaning of Jorogumo was horse spider. Jorogumo lives two lives, both as a spider and as a yokai. When a golden weaver reaches 400 years of age, it develops magical powers and begins to feed on human prey instead of insects. Jorogumo make their nests in caves, forests, and empty houses in towns. Possessing a cunning intelligence and a cold heart, they see humans nothing more as insects to feed on. They are skilled deceivers and powerful shapeshifters, usually appearing as a young, sexy, and stunning beautiful woman. Even when it's in its human form, its reflection will show a great giant spider. It cannot be killed by any kind of poison. Jorogumo's favorite prey are young, handsome men looking for love. When a Jorogumo spots a man she desires, she lures him into her home with promises of affection. He is never seen again. Jorogumo's spin silk is strong enough to ensnare a grown man so he cannot escape. They also have powerful venom that can slowly weaken a man day by day, allowing the spider to savor her victim's long and painful death. Jorogumo can control other lesser spiders, even employing fire-breathing spiders to burn down houses of anyone who is suspicious of her activities. They are skilled predators that a Jorogumo can operate like this for years and years, even in the middle of a busy city, pulling up hundreds of discarded skeletons of young foolish men. We are now going to be moving on to some folklore stories about Jorogumo and her exploits to catch her prey. Our first story is of the Dren Falls of Izu. At the Dren Falls of Izu allegedly lives Jorogumo, the mistress of the waterfall. The local legend tells of a man who rested beside the waterfall basin when the Jorogumo tried to drag him into the waterfall by throwing webs around his leg. The man transferred the web around a tree stump, which was dragged into the falls instead of him. After that, the people of the village dared not to visit close to the waterfalls anymore. Then one day, a visiting woodcutter who was a stranger to the story of what happened at the waterfalls tried to cut down a tree and mistakenly dropped his favorite axe into the basin. As he tried to go down to fetch his axe back, a beautiful woman appeared and returned it to him. "You must never tell anyone what you saw here," she said. Initially, he kept the secret, but as the days went by, the need to tell the story burdened him, and finally at a banquet while drunk, he told the whole story. Feeling unburdened at that place, he went to sleep, but never woke up again. In another version, the woodcutter was pulled outside by an invisible string. His corpse was found floating the next day at the waterfall. There are other versions of this story. In another one, the woodcutter falls in love with Jorogumo. Our next story is of a young woman appearing to be 19 or 20 years old, approaches a youthful samurai. She tells the child she's carrying that he is surely your father. Go forth and embrace him. The warrior sees through her ploy, and realizing that she is a yokai, strikes her with his sword, making her flee to the attic. The next day they found the dead Jorogumo, along with numbers of bodies that the Jorogumo devoured, as well as a gravestone that she used to act like a child to fool the samurai. Now moving on to our last story about Jorogumo. The story of Magaruku. He was about to doze off. A woman in her 50s approached him. She said that her daughter has taken a fancy to him and invited him to her estate. There's a 16 or 17-year-old girl asking him to marry her. He was already married and he declined, but the girl insisted. She claimed that he almost killed her mother 2 days before, and yet she still visited him, and surely he could not let her feelings come to nothing. Bewildered, Magaroku fled. The house was disappearing as he ran. He found himself back on his own porch. Magaroku's wife assured him that he had been sleeping on the veranda the whole time. Concluding it was only a dream, he looked around and noticed a small Joro spider that had made a tiny web around the eaves. Relieved, he realized how he drove away a spider 2 days before. There is an Edo period legend that has it that a beautiful woman will entice a man into a quiet shack and begin to play a biwa, a type of Japanese lute. While the victim was distracted by the sound of the instrument, she would begin to bind him in spider silk threads in order to devour the unexpecting person as her next meal. Now we're going to be looking at how For Honor represents Jorogumo and how it's different to what we've read so far. In most stories, Jorogumo does not put up a fight, or act extremely aggressive like the Tsukigumo. In most stories, Jorogumo seduces her prey with offers of affection. If their victims do fight back, they often retreat or flee. Other differences with the For Honor Jorogumo is that she controls other yokai, like the Kappa. As well, she uses a lantern to spread fire around. In Folklore, Jorogumo does not use any weapons, but in most versions of stories, they can play an instrument, usually being a shamisen known as the instrument of courtesans, for its twang could excite any man. Now we're going to be talking about the most interesting thing about For Honor's Jorogumo. We're going to be looking at the no theater masks on her abdomen. As well, we're going to be trying to figure out what they mean for Jorogumo. The masks are also used in festivals and to worship gods and to pray for a good harvest. No masks are used for main or secondary roles in no theater, of either a young girl or a supernatural being, inspired by the Heian period. Our first mask is Ayakashi, a mask representing a wraith or a violent god. Round, metallic eyes staring out of a bony face. Our next mask is of Sangu Dabide, the appearance of a god that which scampers the ground. In addition of a kind of a fox god in those which express the fairy, there is no ear. Now we're going to be moving on to some masks that were a bit harder to tell what they could be. The first mask, I believe it could be Imawaka, represents a young man of noble birth. Taking a look at the big mask on Jorogumo's abdomen, I believe it's a Tetsuina mask, representing a demon or devil or an oni, a supernatural being. These masks date back to the Heian period. Used in a number of events in the Imperial Palace on New Year's Eve, December 30 in the old calendar. This yearly event is the source of the current Setsuban festival, known for its bean throwing tradition. Moving on to our final mask, that was a lot harder to tell what it could be. But looking at the facial features, it seems to be a female mask. I believe it's a kumote. The word represents cuteness, youth, and beauty. Omote means face. The mask represents a very young woman. It is one of the most well-known female masks. What could this mean for Jorogumo? Well, I have a couple of theories. One of the theories is that the masks represent on how many victims that Jorogumo has killed, either as yokai or as people. Another theory of mine is that Jorogumo may have came from an abandoned theater, as they do like to make their nests in caves, forests, and empty houses. We do see a large mansion on the map that could be possibly a rundown or a somewhat populated theater. Or Jorogumo was a fan of theater, who knows. My last theory could be that the villagers tried to use the rope and the no theater mask to try and trap Jorogumo, or at least to put her back into the cave where she once came from, but sadly failed in their attempt. I hope you enjoyed the history of Jorogumo, but before we end today's video I want to mention some important things. I have realized of recent that my history videos do take a lot longer than I expect. That's either due to me trying to research a certain topic that might be hard to find, or I'm trying to get all the correct information. This is where you guys come in. I need some help with some suggestions to make some low effort content that will still keep you guys entertained, and give me some more time to work on cinematic content like the Harakiri video that I've made of recent, and obviously history videos. So please, that would be really helpful to me if you have any suggestions or ideas. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for some more content. With that out of the way, I'll see you next time.